What is up, you guys? Glitchiz here, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm finally bringing you all the long anticipated wizard build for the latest update. I know I've been gone a minute. It's been almost a month, maybe even 2 months since I made the last video. There was a lot of things that delayed these updated builds. First one being a bug report that I put in that was pivotal to this build, and it's actually going to be making this build even stronger in the future, which I'll go over here in a minute. It's still not fixed. However, I did take the points for it still, just kind of future-proof it. But I also have construction going on still in the new house. Obviously, you can see we still got a bunch of unpacking still to do, and we have the new baby girl that we've been dealing with. So I've had a lot of things going on and barely any free time, but we got a little week hiatus from work right now, and I wanted to seize the opportunity, this little bit of free time I've got, to hopefully sneak out these last two build updates for you guys. So without any further ado, let's jump into it. So this is what I'm calling the Shock Necro Wizard build. It's going to revolve around summoning skulls, which has some really unique features that a lot of you may or may not know about that I found through all my testing. And it's just very, very strong overall. We're going to take advantage of the soaked debuff again, just because it's insanely strong right now. But first things first, let's jump into the armor. So for the boots, I'm going to be running the Tide Collar shoes. We actually have two options that we can run here. The first one, when you're just running around in the early to mid game, is going to be the Tide Collar shoes. 14 physical armor, 28 magical armor with some mana regen and a short mana regeneration delay. This one I'm taking because of the mana regeneration, and it also gives us +1 to necromancer, which is going to come in handy for this build. The other option that you can run is going to be the Drakian boots. Once you get to the late game and you get to the latest zone where pretty much 90% of the enemies you go against are the new Drak lizard type enemies, these boots are going to be the best in slot for those instances, simply because of the bonus damage buffs you're going to be getting. You get a bunch of stamina generation delay, bonus stamina regeneration, but you get a flat 5% bonus damage against all Drak enemy types, just flat out from the boots itself. But then if you upgrade it, you get a little bit more stamina, some piercing and cutting armor, 10% bonus damage to all wildlife, and then another 10% to Drak, giving you a 15% total bonus overall. And that 15% against that specific enemy type will beat out the bonus that you get to necromancer and things like that. So in that final area, I would run these boots. Anything prior to that or against a boss that isn't a Drak based enemy, I would run the Tide Collar shoes. Moving on to the pants, best in slot across pretty much every build that I'm running are the new Wayfarer pants. These are really, really strong and are new exclusive pants to the high-end zones in the new Drak territory. They came out with the latest update. Tons of bonus sprint speed, stamina depletion, minus stamina depletion while climbing, while gliding, bunch of stamina regen and flat stamina for the upgraded perks. And then you also get 1 point skill bonuses to runner, airborne, and rebound, which makes your gliding and just general running around and traversal in the map, which is something that you do 90% of the time in this game. So overall, really, really handy pants all around for pretty much any class that you're running. Moving on, the gloves were interesting. I tried a few different ones, but for this particular build, mainly because we're focusing on the soaked status debuff, we're going to be running the frozen gauntlets, bunch of mana regen, 10% wand damage, 5% increase to ice damage, which isn't really that big of a deal because we're going to be focusing primarily on fire and shock damage for this build. But the big one is the 25% bonus critical strike damage against soaked enemies. And with this build, we're going to be having a pretty much 100% uptime on soaked debuffs on our enemies at all times, which is awesome. Wand mastery for more wand damage, arcane deflection, another wand mastery, and then a point into Iceman, which we're not really using. So a bunch of bonus damage for our wands, and then the increased critical strike damage is going to be awesome for both staff and wand usage. So then that is the gloves. Moving on to the chest piece, we have the tried and true Sun Piercer chest plate. Wizards can be a little bit squishy, so with this chest piece, we're getting a ton of bonus health, 360 flat health and 36 stamina for the base stats. And then when you upgrade it, you get +1 to Blood Rage, which we don't really care about, and Veteran for that instance. But you also get another 120 health on top of that. So nearly 500 bonus health, which in the late game, when you're going against some of the bigger bosses, that's like one of their one-hit kill shots on you that you can just negate just from bonus health alone. So tons of extra survivability with this chestplate. That's why we run that. And then lastly, for the helmet, we're running the Circlet of Lightning. Again, very, very good for soaked status debuff type builds. Bunch of mana regeneration, 5% increased damage to all shock damage, which is the main element we're going to be focusing on in this build, and 21% critical strike chance against soaked enemies, which is pretty much every enemy we're going to be hitting. So we'll have to make sure to add that to our final totals when we check out our attributes at the end, because anything related to the soaked enemies actually doesn't show up in the base stats for our basically attributes. So we'll have to add that, and by the time you add them all up between our weapon, our helmet, and our gloves, you actually are sitting like over 50 to 60%, which is pretty crazy. You also get Spell Slinger, which is really good, Terror, which is amazing for our staff skills and like chaining and fearing enemies. Another point in Spell Slinger, and then obviously Thunder, which is going to boost our shock damage even more. So really, really strong headpiece, and probably the best in slot for any soak status debuff base build and shock build for that matter. So that is the armor. Moving on to the rings, I personally like to take one Ring of the Ancients and one Ring of Thundersnow. I tried pretty much every combination you could with bonus health, bonus health regeneration for lower levels. Gemini Ring isn't a bad option early on. If you want a little bit more survivability, you can run one of these. A lot of people ask me where to find the Ring of Ancients, and I haven't actually ever really showed it in any of my videos. So where I get mine pretty consistently is the Kindle Wastes in this area right here. The old school, basically, chest farm. Where are you? I believe it was like right here. No, it was over here, I think. Yes, right here. So this little flame altar, there's going to be a gold chest that you can farm, a mystic chest in this zone. It doesn't have the infinite respawn that my old fastest legendary farm guide used to do. You will have to wait the hour or so reset for it. However, it is pretty consistent for this area to find the Ring of Ancients. So this particular chest, and I believe there's one lower on the cliff that you can do as well if you have the time. Hopping between those two, that's typically where I found those. As for the Ring of Thundersnow, this is a newer ring. Pretty much any legendary jeweled chest in the newer zones can drop this pretty consistently. It is going to be kind of random, but that is where I found those. And I found that running one of each is a little bit better just because we get a little bit more critical strike chance when we run one of each. If we look at our attributes here, we're sitting at 16% base and 8% magical. But if we switch to the double Thundersnow, you'll notice that, yeah, we might have an extra point in damage to Thunder and Wizard, but our critical strike chance drops to 11 instead of, 16 or 18. So you're getting about a 5 to 6% reduction on crit chance. And we obviously want to be critting as much as possible, especially with the wand and staff type that we're using. The staff, we're mainly going to be focusing on chain lightning spells, which hits multiple targets at once and procs critical strikes really, really fast, as well as the wand type that we're using is a multi-projectile wand, and so having that higher crit chance allows us to crit even more on the additional projectiles that we do. So the higher the crit chance, the better. So that's why I like running one of each. You tend to get a little bit more max damage output when you have one Ring of the Ancients and one Thundersnow. You'll have a little bit higher base when you do double Thundersnow, but in the long run, from what I tested, especially against certain bosses that are a little bit longer of a fights, one of each ended up beating it out DPS wise in the long run. That's why I run that. Moving on, shield, not a big deal, but I like to run the prismatic ward with my wands. You can parry with these, things like that. Gives you shroud resistance, wand mastery, and things like that, which are going to give us bonuses while we have our wand out. So that is always good there. And then that is going to be the basically accessories. Moving on, we have our weapons. really only 2 that we need to worry about. I tested pretty much every max level wand and staff in the game. The only one that I don't have in there in terms of the staff that you can use is potentially the Clearwater staff early on. It has a lot of mana regen perks and things like that, so you'll never really have to worry about running out of mana. Once you get to the max level though, and you have your perks into more spirit and more skills that will give you tons of mana regen in the form of like orbs and things like that, you really don't have to worry about that in the late game. So I go for the max damage staff, and in that particular instance, the Violet Storm is going to be the best in slot in my opinion. You get plus 4.2 magic shock damage, a little bit of mana regen, which is always nice, but you also get 6% flat critical strike chance, 12% opportunistic, which will give us more critical strike chance, so 18 flat critical strike chance against all soaked enemies, and then 32% ruthless, which is critical strike damage against soaked enemies, which is obviously, as I mentioned, going to be pretty much 100% uptime. So every enemy is going to be getting 32 flat additional critical strike damage and 18 bonus critical strike chance just from the weapon alone, not including armor. So super strong. And then I put a Gem of Currents on this. What the Gem of Currents does is basically once you apply the soak status debuff to yourself, and I'll show you a quick little trick on how to apply that very easily. Every single critical hit that you potentially do on an enemy after you are soaked can apply the wet and soak status debuff to the enemy, and hitting a soaked or wet status debuffed enemy will not only reduce their stamina and stamina regen by 30%, but it will have a 50% chance to deal 28 bonus shock damage, and then the big benefit is it reduces their shock and ice resistance by another 30%, and since almost all these spells that we're going to be doing are shock-based spells, it's basically a free 30% extra damage boost that you're going to be getting anytime that you apply that debuff to them. So really, really strong combination, and that's why I use this particular gem on both the staff and the wand for this build. Speaking of wand, the best in slot wand that we're going to be using is the Ancient Drac wand. It's by far the best wand for this particular build. I tried all the max level fire ones. Even against enemies like the Fell Dragon Boss that are technically weak to fire, the Drac full lightning Drac wand did much more damage than the pure fire-based wands just because of that extra shock damage from the soak status debuff that we're doing. Another reason why this is really good is it has some mana leech on it, which is always nice, 6% flat critical strike chance, 2 magic shock damage perks on it, and another 32% ruthless to give us that huge boost to critical strike damage whenever we crit with that. The other big thing is it's considered a multi-shot wand, so it'll fire multiple projectiles at a slightly reduced damage, so each individual hit will be a little bit less, but you're going to be burning down enemies quicker because with some of the perks that we're taking in the skill tree, every critical wand hit that you can do can potentially spawn an additional projectile. And since the wand at its core can already produce an additional projectile, you'll see 3 to 4 projectiles coming out at once sometimes, which can nuke enemies down very, very quickly. I always try to take multi-shot wands over the slower, heavy hitting wands and just outperforms them in the long run DPS pretty much every single time. So all around, very, very good wand, especially for soak status debuff builds. And then again, we're running that Gem of Currents on it for obvious reasons. Bonus shock damage again, and then the bonus duration to the debuff and the resistances. So that is the weapons. Moving on. For the spells, I don't really worry about any of the ice spells. I have recently been playing around with Shock Wisp. It has a pretty short, like 15-second lifespan, but it does a pretty good chunk of damage. So if you preemptively throw this out right before a big fight, they can be helpful. And because we're boosting our shock damage with a lot of the skill perks that we're taking, this does actually come in handy every once in a while. But the 3 main ones that we're going to be dealing with is going to be Eternal Chain Lightning. This is good for taking down stun bars like the Fell Dragon Boss stun bars, Eternal Heal Channel in a pinch. You can just hold it down, shoot out a bunch of orbs that actually track to you, and have the potential to even revive you if you actually get hit with one of those healing orbs after dying. So just a little in-pocket healing opportunity. Honestly, I barely ever use this because once you see how some of our crits work and the orb generation that we do, you get so many resource orbs that are upgraded, by the way, that your health, stamina, and mana fill almost instantly after every single kill. I also like to take the Eternal Fireball too. It's the hardest hitting AoE type spell that we have. So you can kind of initiate a fight with this Fireball. Just do a big AoE explosion, aggro them all, get them down to like half health, and then just chain lightning the rest of them down afterwards. And then lastly, we have Eternal Lightning Channel. This is the go-to bread and butter staff skill for the average mediocre enemy, and even a lot of the mid to end game bosses. The really cool thing with the shock element in general is that once you build up their stun bar and particularly combo it with the Gem of Currents, you can actually stun lock enemies indefinitely. So the Eternal Chain Lightning spell, you can literally just hold it down forever. It has a ton of uses because it just fires so fast and is really, really cheap. And it just procs so quickly that with the skills that we're taking, the enemy just gets stun locked over and over and over again and literally can't hit you. So it might not do the most damage, but it makes the game pretty much easy mode because everything just gets stuck and frozen in place, which is insane. So those are the spells. Moving on to consumable items. Things have changed here, especially because we're using the Necro build. Our bread and butter bonus minion defense, and the reason why I inputted the bug report in, which I'll show you guys here in a second, is we're going to be taking advantage of the Greater Skull Summoning Vessels and the Necromancer skill. A lot of people have been sleeping on this, mainly because the creation chance when you max out the perks in the tree, at least for Necromancer, is really realistically only going to be like 20%. So every like 4th or 5th, maybe 6th kill can generate one of those skulls. However, these did get upgraded a little bit. The AI on them is a bit better. They have a 2-minute lifespan and do a nice chunk of fire damage, which is pretty nice. And it also can pull aggro off of you from other enemies if you get surrounded a lot. So there is a lot of utility. But the other cool thing is they're just very easy to craft. I believe they take like the greater ectoplasm shards, which you can just mine in any hollowed halls very, very quickly. If you just do a farming run, you can get hundreds and hundreds of them every run if you just look for those crystals. And bone meal and things like that are super easy to craft. So these are actually really easy to take down. But the other cool thing that I noticed is, and I don't know if this is a bug, I didn't actually report this one, this is a whole new one that I've found recently, is it has a tendency to actually stun lock and kind of like bug out certain larger hitbox enemies, the Fell Dragon Boss being one of them. Every single time I faced the Fell Dragon Boss and I preemptively threw out like 4 or 5 of these greater skulls, the dragon would just get like stuck in his animation and wouldn't be able to hit you because your chain lightning stuns in combination with the 5 consistent hits from your skulls kind of like staggered him over and over and over again. So it made it really, really easy. And once you get 4 or 5 of them out, hollowed halls, I've gotten like 6 to 8 of them out at once. You just have this little minion army and it's just super handy and it does a ton of bonus damage. The other cool thing, and this is what I wanted to bring up about the bug report that I'm waiting and why this build is going to be even stronger down the road, is if you look here, here's the little bug report I put in. I'm loving the new skill tree update. Notice something when testing out a new build revolves around the summoning skulls and the necromancer skill. However, even though the greater summoning skulls are considered a throwable attack item, I noticed that while testing the vile concoction perk, which if we go into the skills tree here, we go over here, the vile concoction perk, when fully upgraded, is supposed to increase all throwable damage by 36%. Now, the greater skull summoning vessels that summon those skulls are considered a throwable attack item. So if the skill was working properly, we should be getting 36 additional damage to every single skull minion that we summon, which is why I thought this perk was going to be really broken. They're already really good as is, but if this was working, it just would be insane DPS that you could get, just because they're so easy to craft. And at first, I thought it was intentional. So instead of putting in a bug report, I just, as you saw, added a suggestion to the website saying, hey, this isn't working properly. It would be really cool if this vile concoction perk worked with the throwable attack skull minions, because right now, not too many people are using it, and this might actually make it really viable. Well, as you can see right here in the bottom corner, they flagged it saying that this is not a suggestion, please open a bug report. So even though they haven't fixed it yet in the game, the fact that they closed my suggestion box and have already considered this an actual bug, it leads me to believe that the Vile Concoction perk should be working with these Greater Skull summoning vessels, and they're just not working properly right now. So if they, in fact, in the next patch or whatever, do fix this, maybe it'll be 1.0 when this actually gets fixed, that 36% bonus damage to all of our necromancer minions is going to be a huge spike in damage. It's going to make necromancer kind of minion summoning builds really, really strong. So I'm preemptively kind of building this for you guys in advance. We have pretty much every other skill that we would need, as I'll show you guys here in a minute, without even wasting the points into necromancer. So the fact that we're taking it isn't really hurting anything. All the little like combat demos that I'll show you at the end of the video has the perks in this Vile Concoction selected as an option, even though it's not working, and we still burn everything down with literally no problem at all. So keep that in mind. If you really want to min-max right now and don't want to waste the 3 points or whatever in Vile Concoction and Shell Shock to get it there, you could take those 8 additional points or whatever and maybe work your way up to get 1 point in Fatal Precision for more crit chance. You could potentially put it into Wet Dog and Soak Dog so that when you give yourself the Soak debuff, you don't get as bad of a stamina regeneration delay negative on you. So those are a few different options you could do in the meantime while we're waiting for this particular bug to get fixed. But the second that gets corrected, definitely take this combo here and get that bonus damage, because people are sleeping on the necromancer skulls right now. And as you'll see from my Fell Dragon boss kill, we kill it insanely fast, and that's with unbuffed necromancer skulls. So keep that in mind. It's just overall a really fun build and unique, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. But moving on, the other things you're obviously going to want to take in terms of consumables is your max best in slot health and mana potions. In this case, we have the Ultimate Health Potion Plus and Ultimate Mana Potion Plus. I also take a stack of Drac Soulward Flasks, especially in the later zone, to give that the 10% bonus damage against all Drac enemies. We obviously want to take our portable water pump. This is our go-to method for applying the soak status debuff to us, and I'll show you guys how to do that here in a second if you already don't know how. I also take some pocket heaters. This is great specifically for the Albany Summits territory. We only have really like one piece that gives us the ice resistance. So if you're at the tippy top peaks of the Albany Summits territory, you are susceptible to hypothermia. Carrying these around will give you that +2 frost resistance to kind of buffer you a little bit and give you a solid 4 to 5 minutes in that cold temperature without dying. I also take the elixir buff. 20% bonus damage against all Fell enemies. Great for the Fell Dragon boss and anything within the Shroud. Take, obviously, Flask the Fell for bonus stamina. Prayer of the Flame Scroll for 20% increase to fire damage. Great combination with our Fireball. It also gives you bonus to the Shroud as well. And then for the 4 main food items, and yes, we have 4, we're going to be taking the Dessert Stomach perk in the skill tree to give us an additional food slot. First up, we have the Grilled Algae Buds for the herb. This will give us a flat 140 mana, which is really good. We have the Latte, +30 stamina, +30 stamina regeneration, and +6 magic damage. We're going to take every maxed food item that gives us that bonus magic damage. So that'll be our liquid. Next, for our meat option, we have the Meat Wrap, 200 more flat health and another 6% flat magic damage. And then last but not least, the best in slot overall, our go-to one, is going to be the Algae Salad. This gives us 120 mana and 21% bonus magic damage, which is huge. And all of these last between 45 and 55 minutes. So you won't have to replenish these very often. So those are the best in slot foods, in my opinion, and pretty much all the consumables you're going to need. Some alternate options, Wisps of Light if you're in a dark cave. You can throw this out to give you some bonus light to your surroundings. And then for specific areas like the Shroud or the Fell Dragon boss, for example, you could swap out something like the Algae Buds for the Glimmer Gentian Tea. This is considered a night plant. Gives you bonus damage against Fell, 15% to be exact, which is going to be a lot more than just bonus damage, or bonus mana, I should say. So for that particular fight, this would be a good option to swap to. And then you also have like your skull ectoplasm soups or whatever that are good for the Hallowed Halls. Take whatever best in slot one you have for that if you're doing those particular one-off instances. But for generic, everyday, 99% of the time use, these are going to be the 4 best in slot food items. So that is all the food. Next, we can go into the skills, which is probably the most important part. And I'll kind of go in the order that I would recommend from kind of early game to late game. Right out the gate, definitely pick up double jump. It's just a no-brainer for every class. It's going to make traversal way easier. Point and spirit in the trickster tree. Point and counter strike followed by updraft. This is another main go-to that you have to get pretty much for every class, just to increase your mobility with your glider and things like that. Then from there, early on, I would try and pick up 2 early points in constitution for some bonus health, followed by some points in the battle mage tree, because early you're probably going to be focusing on wand more than staff. You really don't want to worry about your staff abilities until you unlock in the mid to late game your eternal spells. So that means a point in intelligence followed by 1 point in arcane deflection. We get 2 bonus points from our armor, so we don't need to put additional points into it. And honestly, we're not going to be parrying that often with the wizard anyway. I mainly just take that to keep moving down and get the point in intelligence. I also pick up blink because it's a good escape dodge as opposed to your normal roll. Followed by Unity. Damaging enemies with wands has a 40% chance to restore 8% of your maximum mana. So you're going to be regenerating mana with every hit of your wand, which is awesome. Wand specialization, no brainer. Unlock special abilities of the wands, which basically is that huge AoE bubble with our wand attack once we fill up our meter, the ultimate wand ability. Sting, repeated wand damage is increased by 20%, great for longer duration boss fights. Life Burst, defeating an enemy with a magic weapon restores health equal to 3 times your intelligence to all players within 15 meters, including yourself. This is great against lower level mobs, especially if you're getting surrounded. You combo this with like chain hit and things like that, and you're going to be regenerating health insanely fast, and that's not including our orbs. Moving on, we have Arcane Proliferation. Wand attacks have a 30% chance to spawn double the amount of projectiles. Extra projectiles spawned do deal 50% less damage. However, like I mentioned, the reason we're using the Ancient Drac Wand is because by default, it can already summon additional projectiles. So each of those additional projectiles has its own chance to summon multiple projectiles for each of those. So you can burst enemies down really, really quick with that wand. Next, we have Wand Mastery, no brainer. Wand damage increased by a flat 30%, followed by 3 points into Life Essence. This is huge on a wizard for survivability. It increases our maximum health by 6 times our intelligence attribute. And I'll tell you right now, we are taking every single point of intelligence that you can get on this tree. We're sitting at 23, which is the max that you can get in the game. So tons of extra health and tankiness in this build from this particular perk. It makes us way more gives us way more survivability for such a squishy class. Quick point into Exalted. Well, not quick point, it's like 3 or 4 points, but this gives 1 point of intelligence for every 2 levels of flame. And because our altar is up to like 8 or 9 now, I think it's like 4 additional points of intelligence that we're getting for this, which is flat 20% bonus magic damage right there. And then lastly, the point in intelligence, just to pick it up to get to that max, like I was saying. Moving on in the healer tree, point in intelligence with 1 point into healer. Health gain from healing spells and skills is increased by 15%, even with just that 1 point in it. And we will be taking 1 point in healing aura. It doesn't do a ton of healing, but in combination with healer and some of the orbs that we're going to be getting, it just gives us that little bit more survivability for such a squishy class. Grab a point in spirit for mana, point in intelligence for more damage, point in spirit followed by divine surge. Healing spells can perform critical strikes that scale with your critical strike damage. This is nice if you're using that chain heal spell, for example. And then lastly, the point in intelligence. Next, we're going to be taking all 3 points into Necromancer. This is further getting 1 bonus point because of our armor. When killing an enemy with any magic weapon, there is a 20% chance to summon a friendly skull companion. This will act similar to the Greater Skull summoning skull that we get with those vessels that we throw for the attack items. Those ones that you summon from killing enemies won't get buffed by the Vile Concoction perk if they do fix it. However, it's just one additional minion that can pull aggro, that can do bonus damage, and it just builds up your little minion army, which is super helpful. Moving on to the Wizard's Tree, pretty much one of the most important trees for this class. 3 points in Mage Apprentice, magic weapon damage in general increased by 20%. This gets increased by an additional +1 because of our armor. Point in Intelligence, followed by 3 points into Arsonist, increasing all fire damage by 30%. 1 point into Intelligence for more damage, and 3 points into Wizard, which gets a 4th bonus point because of our armor. This gives us more magic weapon critical strike chance with magic weapons, sitting at 8%. 1 point into Spirit, followed by maxed out Thunder. This is obviously a no-brainer. 3 out of 3, and we get +2 because of our ring and armor as well here. So tons of bonus shock damage, which is awesome. Point in Intelligence, followed by Chain Hit. This is a big one. Critical strikes with magic weapons will automatically hit a second enemy within 15 meters for another 5 shock damage. Not a ton of bonus damage, but that Chain Hit in combination with Mass Destruction, critical strikes with magic weapons deal 2 shock damage per intelligence to all enemies within a 15-meter range of the target. So by chain hitting that 1 or 2, you're going to notice, especially with multi-projectile weapons or our Chain Lightning, for example, that if any one of those little hits proc a critical hit, it's just going to mass spread to every single other enemy in the nearby vicinity and just burn them down just as fast and or stun them, which is going to be awesome because of the perks that we're taking. So really strong combo, and we're putting 3 full points into Mass Destruction. Moving on, last but not least, in the Trickster Tree, for our Wizard type spells, Point in Spirit, followed by 1 point into Counter Strike. We don't really care about receiving damage. We want to avoid taking damage as much as possible. I'm just taking it to move further up the tree. Point in Spirit, point in Intelligence, another point in Spirit, another point in Intelligence, followed by 3 out of 3 with a +1 from armor into Terror. Critical strikes with spells have a 60% chance to stun targets for 2 seconds. This is the perk that allows you to infinitely stun lock enemies. Because our Eternal Lightning Channel procs so quickly, you critical hit so fast that the enemy just gets crit over and over and over again and just gets stunned forever, so they can never hit you, which is really nice. I also forgot to mention 3 points out of 3 for Quick Charge and 3 points out of 3 for Mana Currents. This will increase our base mana regeneration, and then Quick Charge is a must-have, which reduces the casting spell time for all of our staff spells by 45%. So really fast charge time on those slower spells like Fireball, things like that. This particular perk really makes our staff spells viable, especially because they're slower to cast. So pick that up. 3 points into Bloodletting with another bonus point because of our armor. Critical strikes spells have a 60% chance to spawn 2 health, mana, and or stamina orbs. Each orb that you gather restores 10% of that respective resource, so mana, health, or stamina. However, as you'll see here in a minute, we are taking the Good Metabolism perk, which gives a 30% bonus instead of 10 to all health, mana, and stamina orbs. So every single orb that we spawn in, and we're going to be spawning dozens of them with our Chain Lightning, will heal 30% of that respective resource with every single orb. So it's basically an instant refill of every resource. You could be damn near 0 mana, and you pick up 2 or 3 orbs, and you're just instantly right back to max mana again. So you almost never run out of resources with this. Moving on, we got the point in Arcane Concentration, gain 1 point of Spirit. This is similar to the Echo one, which gives the points of Intelligence for every flame level. This is the same thing, but it gives us 4 additional points into Spirit for more max mana. Followed by the point in Spirit, and then 3 out of 3 with 2 bonus perks because of our armor into Spellslinger, giving 25% bonus damage to all staff damage, which is awesome. I also take Blood Magic. This is nice because if you're in a long boss fight and you're spamming like Chain Lightning and things like that, and you don't have a lot of smaller minions around to generate the orbs, Blood Magic will allow you to replenish your mana anytime it drops below 20% at the cost of health. So health is really easy. Just click a little potion and you can refill max. I'd rather have 0 downtime on my spells instead of worrying about popping a potion than dealing with something like that. If you have tons of little minions, again, you'll never have to worry about that. Your orbs will keep you up at all times. But in the rare instance where you only have one enemy, it's a big boss, and you have to kind of spam the same spell that's a hard-hitting spell over and over and over again, like the Fell Dragon boss, for example, having this will allow you to basically infinitely spam those spells until the stun meter breaks and things like that without running out. So really good in a pinch. Point and Spirit followed by Shell Shock. This is a waste. We're not using explosive range arrows right now. However, we're taking it to get the 3 out of 3 in Vile Concoction. Again, this currently is not working because of the bug, but based off of my post, my suggestion that you guys just saw, they are recognizing it as a bug, which leads me to believe that this will get fixed and all of our Greater Summoning Skull throwable items will start doing a ton more damage, 36% more damage each, to be exact. So I like to take that to kind of future-proof the build. Again, if you don't want to waste the points right now, put it in something like Wet Dog and Soaked, or take a couple extra points into Endurance, things like that. I think between these two, it's like 8 additional points right there. So keep that in mind. But then last but not least, for our Stamina and Endurance side of things, take the point in Endurance, followed by 3 out of 3 with a bonus because of our legs. Armor into Runner. Sprint speed is increased by 20%, and stamina cross while sprinting is decreased by 20%, followed by the next point, Endurance. Good metabolism, already talked about this, increases all of the orbs that we generate up to 30% instead of 10%, but it also increases all of our health and mana potion effectiveness by 20% as well. So it basically, if you think about it, it instantly increases the tier of your potion. So say you have a regular health potion, by having this ability, it's the equivalent of basically giving you the next level up potion, which is awesome. Point in Dexterity, kind of a waste, but we're taking it to pick up Dessert Stomach, and then this is the perk that allows you to take that 4th food item, which in this case is really important. It's either going to be 15% bonus damage against Fell that we'd be missing out with on otherwise, or the 140 flat mana from the Algae Buds, which is also very beneficial, so worth the extra points in my opinion. Just gives you more versatility with your build when you can throw in an extra food item, in my opinion. Then for survivability, once you get all your damage perks done and you start getting into the late game and things start hitting a little bit harder, you're going to want to start working on your defenses. So now that Endurance and Magic is out of the way, you want to focus on the Guardian Tree. We should already have the 2 early points in Constitution for more health, but now we want to pick up Heavy Plates. Equipped Armor grants 12% increased physical armor, so more physical defense there. Shiny Plates grants 12% increase to Magic Armor, so bonus armor against magic attacks. Point in Constitution for more health, followed by Tower and Warden. This is 10% magic resist and 10% physical resist on top of our shiny plates, which is nice. 1 point in Absorb, because we obviously don't want to base a build around taking damage. However, if you receive magic damage, 4% chance to restore a little bit of mana per health point lost. Moving on, we're taking Constitution and Constitution for more health. Thick Skin, this is a big one. Gain 1 point of Constitution, aka more health, for every 2 levels of Flame. This is the same thing as Exalted, basically. So it'll be 4 additional points of Constitution because of our maxed out Flame Altar, and then 1 point into Earth Aura. You emit a protective aura that increases the physical and magic resistance by 10% for you and all allies within 4 meters. So it's just basically a flat 10% damage resistance that you're going to be getting. And the reason you only want to take 1 point is because the upgrade to it, all it does is increase the range that it affects, not the amount that it gives you for resistance. So it could be 3 out of 3, you're still only going to be getting 10%. So if you're a solo player like me, there's really no point in taking any more points into it other than the first, because you're going to be getting 10% across the board regardless of level. So yeah, that is the skills. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. Really, only other thing left that we can do is pop all of our consumables and kind of show you what the overall attributes are for this character. We have our summoning skulls, which are always cool. And again, super cheap. But we've got max level potions. We'll go ahead and pop that Drax Soulward Flask. We got our food item, our meat, mocha tea, algae buds, flame scroll, stamina potion, elixir buff. Why not? We'll throw on the frost resistance, You've got the Vaka buff in your base and crafted that. That's a bonus to scavenger damage, I believe, and or health. We can check that right here really quick. That gives 20% bonus damage to scavengers and a 10% bonus resistance to poison, which is nice. And then also, I don't have my dog here because he disappeared. That's another bug in the game right now. But if you pet either your cat or your dog, that gives you a friendly pet buff that gives you a flat 25 additional HP. So feel free to grab that. But as it stands, we go to our attributes now. We're sitting at 1,768 health, which is pretty crazy for a squishy wizard build. 849 mana, 526 stamina, which is plenty. And again, any of these resources you're pretty much not going to have to worry about at all, just because you're going to be generating orbs insanely fast with this build. Flat 40 melee damage, 45 range damage, and 168% magic damage. Moving on to Constitution. We're at 17, Spirit 20, 3 shy of the max, so you're a ton of mana there. 10 Endurance, 8 Strength, 9 Dexterity, which are important, and then max 23 Intelligence. Took every piece of intelligence point that you could get on the skill tree. Moving on to damage, this is where it gets a little crazy. 150% critical strike damage, which is potentially going to be a little bit more because of our weapons and armor that have Ruthless on them. Those don't get calculated in this. And then the big one is magical critical strike chance. We're sitting at 10% here, and 8%. If we go ahead and bring out our weapon, for example, check this again. We're sitting at 16 magical critical strike chance and 8% magical. So what is that? 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 24 total critical strike chance flat. But what they don't calculate is what you get from anything that's based around the soak status debuff. So 24% by itself. Then we go to our armor and we get 6% flat, but 32% critical strike chance. That isn't included. Another 12% from opportunistic for critical strike chance. So that increases it to 34, 35, 36%. And then if we go to our helmet, this has 21% critical strike chance as well. So that'll brings it to 35, 45, 55. So you're just shy of 60%, not including the critical strike damages on the gloves, not critical strike chance. But not including the armor that's calculated in attributes, you're just shy of 60% chance, critical strike chance, with every single magic damage hit that we're doing. And with chain lightning and things like that, you hit like every second with that spell. It's a very fast hitting spell. So you crit like crazy. And then again, with the wands, we're shooting multiple projectiles. Each one of those can crit on every hit. So you can see bursts. There's times in the video where you'll see me get a nice like 3 or 4 projectile proc with a wand, and like 2 or 3 of them will crit at the same time, and just a huge chunk of health from the boss will drop with just one swing of the wand, which is pretty insane. So huge critical strike damage, even though it doesn't kind of show it properly in the stats. Sneak attack, merciless attack, don't really care about that. 10% backstab damage, that's okay. 10% Drac bonus damage because of the potion, 20% Fell, which could potentially be 35% Fell bonus damage if we swap the algae buds for the Gentian tea, 20% bonus damage to scavengers because of the Vaka buff, and then for weapon damage, we've got 25% staff, 35% bonus wand, mainly because of our gloves, 36% throwing damage, which in this case isn't really doing anything because it's bugged right now, but that'll be a huge burst to our necromancer skull minions once that gets fixed. 50% bonus fire damage, 5% ice damage, and 60% bonus to shock damage. Protections, we're sitting at 267, 243, so a pretty balanced, good balance between physical and magical resistance. So all in all, just a very well-rounded build. And as you guys will see from the 2 different combat demos that I'm going to show at the end of the video here, you burn down enemies insanely quick with this build. Felt Dragon boss is like dead within the first 1 or 2 seconds of the second phase. And then I also have a little demo I'll show you going against the final encampment with some of the elite big Drac brute enemies that are the hardest hitting enemies in the game right now. I basically kill out the entire encampment with literally not even getting hit once because they're just all stun locked and can't do anything. So really, really strong. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. I know I had fun making it, and it's probably the most fun wizard build. I loved my pyromancer necromancer build that I made back when Hallowed Halls first got announced. So I'm glad that they added some throwable perks that'll hopefully get fixed to kind of make those minions viable again, because it's just a really cool like alternate like vibe to the wizard, to your standard wizard rather, with just slinging spells. Having those additional minions is always really cool to me. So I'm looking forward to when that gets buffed even further. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you did, be sure to smash that like button, comment down below. I appreciate all of you guys' feedback. Also, if you want to keep up to date with any of my future content, consider subscribing and leave a comment down below. Turn on that notification bell. And if you want to join a community of like-minded gamers, there's links in all of my videos down in the description to our Discord. We've got over 1,000 members in there now, a ton of which play Enshrouded, as well as a bunch of other Survivor games that are always looking for people to play with. So hopefully you guys jump in and we see you guys around here soon. But until the next one, hope everyone has a great day, and we'll see you all later.